Hi there, it's Karen, and I'm here with, of course, Whiskey Sour, my buddy. Hope you guys are doing really well. I wrote a blog today called, Will You Ever Be Good Enough? And this was brought on by a status update on Facebook by a friend. And I want to read you what he wrote and then give you my thoughts on this, because as you know, I really like to break things down and get all philosophical about it. That's kind of my thing. Again, I have to every once in a while say I'm no professional over here. I'm just a girl who's been through some really messed up stuff and wrote a record because of it. And that's kind of my story. No psych degree or anything going on. I just like to break things down. I'll read you his quote and then I'll give you my thoughts. His quote is, "I've learned that no matter what you do, you're never going to be good enough. Nothing you do will ever be good enough. So why try?" Well, of course, I'm always so sad when I read something like this. The good part about this quote is he's still a teenager, and so that gives him lots of room to get out of his bad feelings. The bad part is that many of our teens feel this way, and when they should be just channeling huge amounts of energy into something that they really love and into building their character. Now, I will say, this is not only teenagers, this is everyone. And I think we have the tendency to go, oh, well, they're young, so they just don't know, they'll grow out of it. But some don't grow out of it. Some end up being suicidal, and some follow through with that. So I think it's important to not take anybody's feelings and just, fluff them off as saying, oh, they're just a teenager, they'll grow out of that. In the same token, I've talked to people in their 70s who feel this exact way. So it's not just a teen thing, it's just how a person feels. It's specifically a person's feeling. So I don't want to chalk this up to a teen thing, but I'm glad that he at least has the energy and is in a good place to get out of this kind of mentality. So that's good. The worst part of the quote is obviously the why try. When he says at the end of it, nothing you'll do will ever be good enough, so why try? That's obviously the saddest part. But it's also another way of saying why bother, which you guys may know that's kind of that's my catchphrase for the truly depressed. For any of us who have been through a brutal depression, and I've been through a brutal one, giving up is the saddest thing in life. To say why try, why bother, I can't be bothered, or there's no point, it's a bad thing. Now, in looking at the rest of his quote, there are other sad parts, and I think that they could probably be addressed before even getting to that why try part. And again, as you know, I'm all about getting to the root. So I will take any quote, any sentence, and break it down 10 times from Tuesday to try to get at the root of something. If it's a real happy quote that just makes you feel good, maybe not such a need to break it down. But when somebody's feeling really sad like this, let's get to the root of what's going on. Breaking down quotes is not only the philosophical part of me, but it also represents my need to get to the root of every single problem instead of just hacking away at branches. And you guys will hear me say this a lot. I use this analogy a lot, is that, we tend to hack away at our branches all the time. Sometimes, as we've said before, we chop off the wrong ones. And I think it's really important to get to the root of this. So let me start. I'll just do let me do what I do. I'll start with the I've learned part. When he says, I've learned that no matter what you do, you're never going to be good enough. I've learned, that's where I think the problem starts with this whole quote. When we actually verbalize that we've learned anything, it can inhibit us from being open enough to learn the next thing. Especially if it's said just so absolutely. Well, I've learned that, and then it's done. Then you're not willing or open to learn anything else. Once we've decided that the lesson we think we have learned is actually fact, that's the problem. I believe then we're stuck in that headspace. Before the thought even comes, we've decided we've learned something, so therefore what we're about to say is set in stone, therefore concrete, and it's unchangeable. And it's probably better to change our mindset to say something like, even though it's a little wordy, at this moment in time, I think or I feel that no matter what I do is not good enough. That might be, if we can get ourselves into that mentality, then you can still You know, you can still sit there and be sad about what's going on, but you can put some perspective on it, at least just to get started, you know. So in continuing the thought, I've learned that no matter what you do, you're never going to be good enough. I think the biggest issue here is that thinking that our self-esteem or our self-worth is based on what we do, you know, just being a bunch of doers. Oh, we're not good enough unless we do something specifically. I think there's a little bit of an issue I take with that, because if you're thinking about your self-worth before even finishing the rest of the thought, then let's not even worry about the rest of the thought, because we've got an issue with your self-worth that needs to be addressed. We simply are good. It's not about being good enough. We are good. That's where we start. We are good. And we don't have to pressure ourselves. Good enough, that word good enough, is even problematic because it's suggesting that we have to struggle to attain a certain amount of goodness. You know, it's like, oh, am I quite good enough, or do I need to be more good or less good? Or you find yourself in this kind of struggle point, and only then are we allowed to even be on the earth or participate in this human race. You know, so that's where I see that going. And then it goes on to say, nothing you do will ever be good enough. That sentence is just fortune telling. You know, I don't know anyone on earth with the capability of making such a futuristic statement, or who is accurate on saying their future is doomed. You know, like, you can look back. We have the capability of seeing what we've experienced, and I think not what we will experience. I think we should stay open to that. Even then, there's some skill involved in seeing our past for what it is, without the depressed emotion attached to it. If we have this capability of looking at our past without that depressed emotion, I think that's a skill. If we tell ourselves we are not, man, I'm so dry. I don't know, time of year, allergies, what, but if we tell ourselves we are not allowed to make negative predictions about our own future, then that's not allowed to be part of the equation. You know, there's certain things, we've talked about this in previous blogs. I would say we've talked about it, but I'm just in there rambling. I've rambled in previous blogs about things that aren't allowed to be part of the equation, the things that you can take out of your dialogue that just aren't allowed to be there. So while the why try that he said at the end, when he said, nothing you do will ever be good enough, so why try? So while that is what will pop out to people as being the saddest part of the quote, it isn't where the problem came from. That's just, there's some bigger issues like, who exactly are we trying to impress? Why? Why does their opinion matter so much? What is our motivation in doing anything or becoming somebody super duper special? You know, I think these are those are all part of that why try, but they have to kind of be answered before we ever get to the end of that sentence, I believe. I feel like the solution is double-sided sticky tape. I think that, number one, I need to evaluate my own self-worth. Is my self-worth based on what somebody thinks of me? Is my self-worth damaged from somebody close to me? And it's usually from somebody close to you, unfortunately. It's usually, you don't put too much on, you know, the neighbor 2 streets over. It's usually somebody that lives with you, a girlfriend, a boyfriend, a parent, or, you know, child or whatever. Are they really someone who I value an opinion from? If yes, why? If they're making me feel badly, would I want their opinion to begin with? Are they even worthy of having an opinion about me? And on top of all that, are they going through something really bad themselves that is inhibiting them from ever having a good opinion about me? Maybe there is a problem with them specifically. And number 2 is evaluate my motivation. Am I looking for rock stardom? Am I looking for just enjoyment in my life? Or am I just looking for some peace and quiet? What is my motivation? Am I seeking attention because I don't feel loved? Am I seeking attention because I'm being selfish? Am I trying to prove the haters wrong? This is kind of something I really take issue with when I see it, when people say F the haters. Well, in theory, that's kind of a nice thing to say, but really, it's like, why do you even entertain the thought of them? You know, if somebody asks me, hey Karen, what do you think about the haters? I go, who? You know, I say who? Because just even saying F the haters, you're actually entertaining them as part of your life. Just don't even worry about that. And most people, truthfully, don't have a problem with the haters. They have a problem with the people who are supposed to love them. That seems to be the bigger issue, with people who are close by. And this whole process of doing anything in a day shouldn't have so much negative emotion attached to it, but it does. And we are humans with spirits and feelings, or should I say we are emotional spirits with humans, with a human body carrying us around. That's probably a bit more accurate. It's unrealistic to think we shouldn't attach emotions to our situations, but sometimes we just need to introduce some of that good old-fashioned logic and try to find some balance in it without being so emotional all the time. When we evaluate our past, do we know how to assess it as though we are looking at our life through a window? Or are we just fixed on the emotions that we felt? Instead of looking at our past as the incidences and how it really was, are we looking at it as though through our emotions? And I think that's maybe a bigger problem, because then we taint what that reality is because we're looking through glasses that have fogged up tears on them. And I don't think that's accurate. So that's same thing goes for our future and our present. When people make us feel badly about ourselves, we sometimes have to just take a step back and act like we are seeing it outside of our own emotions and ask ourselves the logical questions without all the tears involved, and just say, what's going on with my self-esteem? What's going on with my motivation? And if we can answer those, I think we're on a good way to getting somewhere. I don't think we can accurately answer those questions when we're filled with overwhelming sadness. That's tainting it. Now, how do you get out of the sadness? That's a tough one. I think we all have times in our day, and I've mentioned this before, where we think a little bit more clearly than others. Sometimes we try to solve all the world's problems after we've had a really emotional day and we're really tired and it's 11 p.m. at night, and then we try to tackle these things, and that's maybe not the best thing to do. It's maybe good to get a good night's sleep, of course. And I've personally had to ask myself these hard questions, and I continue to ask myself these hard questions about my perception of others after I answer my own self-esteem and motivation questions. Start with self, then worry about that, And actually, you don't have to worry too much about what others think then at all, But it's important to go, oh, why are they hating on me so much? Well, maybe they got a problem with themselves. Okay, let's not worry about that. Let's deal with me. Just get it focused a little bit more. So when he says, I've learned that no matter what you do, you're never going to be good enough. Nothing you do will ever be good enough, so why try? The why try part of our friend's quote here is maybe the saddest, but it's only a result of all the thinking preceding it, which I believe needs addressing. And this is exactly why I break quotes down and thoughts the way that I do, so that I get to the root, so it won't pop back up again, like in the spring, like twitch grass, So maybe I just miss gardening, That is why I break things down. I ended today, I saw a William Shakespeare quote that said, expectation is the root of all heartache. And this is a pretty accurate quote by Billy Shakespeare. Can't say so good. Is that Billy Shakespeare? Chris Farley. Miss Chris Farley so much. What a guy. Expectation is the root of all heartache. I had a therapist, and I've been through many therapists in my life and group therapy and all that stuff. But one thing I took away from all my therapy was that he said, when you have expectations of others, you will be disappointed. This is true because we are not fortune tellers. We don't know what people are going to do. We don't know how people are going to react. And it's not fair to put that on them. So I think when Bill Shakespeare here says, expectation is the root of all heartache, if you're expecting somebody to act a certain way towards you, there's a pretty good chance that you're going to be brokenhearted. And I think in this particular situation, when he's saying you're not going to be good enough, I think he's hoping to be good enough for someone. And you know what? You don't have to be good enough. You are good. That's it. It doesn't have to be for anyone. Nobody. And it's sad that, you get to the point where you say, why try? But I think as friends we can encourage this guy out of it. All right, so anyway, I will tune in with you tomorrow. I hate when people feel sad like this. It really bothers me. So I hope that in breaking that down, it causes us all, and I'm going to continue to think about, myself in this too. It just kind of causes us all to think more a little bit about our self-esteem and about our motivation and things. So hope you guys have a really great weekend, and I will chat with you soon, okay? From Whiskey Sour and I. Whiskey Sour and me. I screw that up sometimes. Rock on.